to start. We'll talk about code or whatever we'll talk about today. It's about to start, so please hang tight while I check that everything is okay. Sound check, camera check, lights check. How's my hair? Oh, wait, I don't have any hair. Maybe put some pants on and I am good to go. So get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start. Get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start.
Oh,
hello and welcome to another meeting of the digital signal processing. Oh, I got it wrong. C++ digital signal processing and JUCE study group. It's great to see you here. How are you doing, Fotis and Cwits?
All good.
Still no JUCE in our meetings, but it's fine.
Yeah, I guess it's fair for me to get confused because we don't talk about JUCE and we use many other languages besides C++. It's a whole thing. Anyway.
But we do use the JUCE.
Yeah, you do. In fact, you are the person using JUCE here because I'm not. All right. So to start us off, how about you continue telling me what you were talking about, Cwits, on the pre-call?
Okay, so I still stuck about the push side of my project. I didn't done anything for, I don't know, more than 1 month already. On the one hand, I don't want, on the other, I don't know what to do. On the third, I just...
Okay, you had to borrow a hand from a friend.
But as I assume that anybody of us have a lot of unfinished projects and things that lying around and messing our heads. So yeah, I decided to go in a little bit another way and try to make GUI like regular GUI interface for that. And now messing around with the QML language. It is.
So you're using Qt?
Yes, it is how to call
and
it.
This is not going to be on the Ableton Push. It's going to be a separate screen that you bought.
Yes.
It's fun that you are looking into this because I spent most of this week and a lot of money reworking my setup, as one does. And one of the things I got is a little display. This one is 5-inch display, and it is advertised as a display for the Raspberry Pi. And it is touch enabled, and that's what I'm using for the teleprompter. That's how I'm able to look at you while I'm looking at the camera.
Sure.
And it seems like you're probably using something like that, right?
I don't know if it will be possible to find. Yeah, but I'm using something. I can't move. I can move. Yeah. Okay.
This is exactly the one I got, except that I have the smaller version.
I have something similar to this. Like this will be more accurate image.
Okay. So
it works basically through HDMI and couple micro USBs. Yeah.
that's a question I have, actually. It seems like in macOS the touch functionality doesn't work, and there are two micro USB ports. One of them is for powering, and the other is for touch. Is that how this works?
Yes.
Ah.
If you want, I can show you through this. This is the same thing I see on the Raspberry Pi display. So I'm not touching mouse right now. And there is two mouses on the screen. It's and everything kind of works. Yeah.
Okay. So, you are using Qt. Do you have any prototype to show? Oh, you do.
It is look like this, but actually this touch interface working a bit weirdly, because when you touch something, this mouse pointer is slightly, how to call it in English? Is slightly off actual position what you touched, but maybe I'm wrong because my fingers are big and I'm not touching the actual.
Is there any sort of calibration you have to do? Like I said, I haven't played with the touch features on my screen.
Like I'm touched right now, there's somewhere here, but mouse pointer appears here somewhere. At the bottom, I don't know. So, yeah.
Did you look into the driver for this? It's not available in macOS, so I didn't play with it, but it's available for Linux, and it can do some very simple things. Perhaps it can do some sort of calibration as well.
I have to. I didn't, to be honest. It is working as it is. So I didn't done nothing, just plugged everything in, and yeah, everything works kind of okay. That's the reason I have to make these buttons bigger. Like not tiny one as in, imagine for comparison. Oh no, license off. Compare the sizes of the buttons, like this small, and I want to make it to fill the whole red area. It will be like 2.5, 3 times bigger than the Reaper buttons, and then it would be impossible to push play button on, or even the smaller ones on this kind of touch interface. So yeah, that's the little bit maybe. But on the other hand, the display is pretty small, so you have to make things bigger as well to be able to see them more easily, I think. Oh yeah, messing around with Qt.
And did you continue that app that you showed us last time to find optimal arrangements of certain packages?
No.
Oopsie.
Okay. Yeah, that the bin packaging is, as I discovered, is a quite big problem. And maybe I have to find some ready open source library for that and just use it, because to be honest, I didn't want to re-implement whole bean packing algorithms. So big and so annoying. I'm so lazy. But yeah, Qt looks like something like this. It is based on JavaScript.
Is there anything noteworthy from this? Is there anything that is particularly easy to use and nice and well designed, or maybe not so well designed?
To be honest, I don't know with what to compare, so I can't be honest with this. But I liked Qt Python implementation, the things, how they are made and how it is easy to connect them together. It was nice and cool, I think. Yeah, so I hope in C++ it will be not the same easy, but at least a little bit similar.
All right, all right.
If you want to compare this is Python code and this is C++ code, there shouldn't be big differences.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me is all the, I guess, pass by reference, all the ampersands and things that you don't have to worry about in Python, and there are some macros in C++.
But what I did little bit research with the help of ChatGPT, and it is quite a problem to pass big arrays of data from C++ to QML. Basically, for example, if I have audio file loaded in C++ and I want to draw the waveform from the actual buffer, I have to copy all the buffer into QML if I use easy way. But if that buffer is 10 megabytes or 100 megabytes big, it will be quite a big problem. There is couple tricks how to make it easier, and I hope people understand and make them. But we'll see. Honestly, by the way, at the beginning I wanted to use JUCE, but not Qt. But I failed to compile JUCE because of I had wrong version of CMake on Raspberry Pi. And I didn't want to mess up with it.
And you would be compiling on the Raspberry Pi, not cross-compiling from your main development machine.
The people in internet says that it is possible. I'm not sure. I didn't manage to do that. So
cross-compilation is always messy. When possible, I prefer to compile on the device. Then again, it's probably slower to compile on the Raspberry Pi. So I guess it's a trade-off.
On main machine, it will be faster a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah. No, that's all my updates.
Okay, then. So, Fotis, take it away.
Okay. 1 sec. Because I'm doing something nasty.
Are you recompiling HISC?
No. I'm recompiling hardware. How do we change? Okay.
We're recompiling hardware.
Boom. Oh, wait, I gotta turn off this blurring thing.
It is accurate. It's blurring everything.
So remember what we did last time?
Yes.
This is the mixer.
No
I
input
created,
mixing, yeah.
Yes, I created a very random and jumbled setup, a very complex patch. I placed random RCAs into each other. By the way, the phone is showing everything mirrored, so this is actually on the left. Anyway, now this thing, I haven't showed you this thing before. We unearthed it. Let me show you what it is. So this thing was created by my godfather, who has been working with electronics for a very long time. He created this for my dad many years ago, and this is an input-output switcher. I actually unscrewed it so you can see what it looks like from the inside, because I know you're gonna enjoy this. Oops, hold on, something is stuck. All right. Wait, no, this was the part that was supposed to come off. Sorry. This is the. So look at this. We have. This is how it's working. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So you see there are 8 inputs and 4 outputs. We didn't use all of them. This one is not connected, but you can see from this structure, these cables, no, wrong. You can see that there is this switcher thingy, which is mechanical, and it allows you to change input on the fly. Actually, I couldn't make this work, the switcher, I mean. But yeah, this is supposed to get input from like microphones, guitars, and stuff like that. And the back is supposed to output to speakers or line out, line in, and whatever you want. So let's pop this back in. Sorry, this is gonna take a little short while. So now let's turn on the mixer, and also I'm gonna share my screen, and you can see my Reaper, my brand new Reaper 7.
How are you liking Reaper 7?
I love it. I have become so accustomed to Reaper that I have been doing some stuff that I haven't done before. For example, this thingy. This is not a new feature that allows you to see the peaks in the waveform with colors.
I like that.
But I want to try it. Just be aware that it makes the repeaks files significantly larger. Like if without the spectral it's 500 kilobytes. With colors it might be 1.5 megabytes, I think. But yeah, apart from that, it's a nice trade-off. Now let's turn on the baby, and of course let's use Vusic Audio Connect. It is pronounced Vusic. William himself has told me so. So we have the regular noisy. I'm sorry that it's only outputting on one channel. I'm gonna sum it to mono for now. We have the usual rhythmic stuff that we saw last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason I'm not getting any input from the LEDs. Anyway, I'll check it out later. Oh, there you go. Now, this It's a Game Boy Color. And we're gonna plug. Oh, there you go. Our baby is waking up slowly. So I'm gonna plug this stereo RCA cable to the Game Boy, and one half, the one RCA is going in the mixer, and the other one is going to the box thingy. So yeah, these are the inputs. First of all, let's get the dry input of the mixer. Oh no, I mean the... Hold on, I'm gonna shut this up. Let's make a new track. Add another instance of Vusic. And this time we're gonna check the second input channel. And let's turn on the Game Boy. Remember which were, oh, line out, there you go. So if I did this correctly, hold on, it's gonna be a lot of trial and error. There you go. Yeah, it's gonna be distorted, so even if Nintendo tries to sue us...
Isn't video game music fair game?
Yeah, but you never know with Nintendo. They have been shutting down fun projects, fun games.
I have heard a story or two, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's turn on the mixer again. I'm gonna mute this one, the raw. And yes, I have managed to distort the Game Boy audio with the mixer. I'm gonna add some limiting DC filtering on both. I wanted to use Dr. Mario because it has a stereo soundtrack. I'm gonna pad it. And now let's turn on the actual one as well. Now both inputs are mono. Oops, I always mix up the panning. Now we're getting... Now on the right you should be hearing the raw signal.
Unfortunately, Skype is mono, so no.
Oops. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. But anyway, to explain what I did here, so let's recap. So the Game Boy, I'm gonna turn it off for now, so it allows me to speak. So like I said, this switcher, I'm gonna do some more experiments with it later, but I wanted to do this as a test. So like I said, the Game Boy is outputting stereo sound, and it's connected to a jack to RCA cable. The one input is in the raw thing, and the other thing is on the mixer. I could have plugged the other output straight to my audio interface, but I plan to do some other things with it, like for example, this mic to headphones input. I'm a bit scared to create a feedback loop inside this baby. I'm not gonna do it. It's too much of a sentimental value for me, unlike these idiots.
But what could the feedback loop do? Could it like fry some components or something?
I don't know, and I don't wanna know. But
okay.
Anyway, after all, I don't think a feedback loop is even possible with this thing. I mean, it's a passive thing. It doesn't require electricity like the mixer. And finally, in my audio interface, we have the one. This is the mixer output, and this is the, what should we call this thing? Let's call it a Larry. Okay, so the other thing is the Larry output. And so, yeah, Skype, but on the left channel, I panned the output, each individual output. Now let's go back to my face. Boom. And let's blur the background again. And anyways, this experiment was so fun that I'm thinking of expanding it even further. Like I can plug in a bass guitar on one of the inputs, and I'm gonna use the mixer as a distortion, because it did distort the Game Boy. So it should yield some very interesting tones with the bass. And also I'm gonna try this thing that you saw in here. What if instead of creating a feedback loop with the mic to headphones inputs of the mixer, I put one input in Larry and the other one in the mixer. So that should be cool, and the possibilities are endless. So that's I'm almost done with my update. I have one more thing to talk about. And this is Reaper 7. I'm still sharing my screen, right?
Yes, you are.
Great. So let's go to Reaper. So I had a little issue with a not the JSFX, a RIA script. So remember this thing that we saw a few months ago, the sampling tool by MPL. This is supposed to, this is recording MIDI notes from a VST and allows you to create samples out of them. I like it, it's very good, it works well. However, recently we got another one called Sample Samurai. So this is how it's supposed to work. Let's load the VST. Theoretically, I could use this one with the no input mixer as well, because it does support hardware devices, as you can read here. But there is a little problem, and maybe we should take a look at it to see if I'm doing something wrong before I push it as a bug report to the developer. Let's load Vital. This is the skin I use for Vital. It's cool, right? It's a synth wavy. I found it on the forum, I think.
Mm-hmm. This is such a nice looking plugin.
Mm. And the graphics and stuff, they're all so smooth. Now let's, oh, whoopsie, sorry about that. Anyway, so Sample Samurai works like this. First, you use the record output, like it says here. You choose track 1. Sorry, you choose the virtual keyboard, which is what I'm using. Channel 1. Now, the functions work, but there is a problem. It has latency for some reason. Maybe I misunderstood the settings. Anyway, I'm going to use the default settings so you see what it's doing. Let's just do 1 octave from octave 1 to octave 2, because it's going to take a little while. So yeah, like the other thing we saw, the sample tool, it's also playing. Don't be scared that the waveforms are blank. We're going to see them after it's done. Do you think this was created with DRM GUI or something else?
Because it doesn't have that characteristic look and feel to me.
We're gonna see it later. Anyway, so the problem is that it has latency. Like it waits and then it records. And unfortunately, there is no thread on the Caucus forum. And I don't understand what I should do here, if there are some latency stuff, or if it's a problem with my own latency settings.
If you change the block size, what happens?
Yeah, let's try it. We're gonna back this up. We're gonna move these things to a different track and mute it. And let's do the same thing. Oh,
And
it lost the
is this
settings.
it's not a VST, this is a rescript?
Yes, this is Lua.lua. We can read it if you want, the source code, after we fix this.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it wouldn't hurt to see what they are doing for the user interface.
Let's try one more time. Oh, oopsie. Stop. Yeah, I forgot to turn on the automation. The arm for recording. Anyway, let's go back. Already we see a difference.
Yeah.
Like it's slower. Shouldn't it be faster?
Well, we could determine that it has to do with the latency or your block size. So that's a start.
Yeah, and the pause is the same, and it's not Vital's fault. I have tried it with a different VST and it did the same thing. What is this interval thing? Oh, maybe it's how many notes does it jump? Like if I put it to 2, maybe it only records like C, D, E, and it skips the minor, the black keys. Anyway, if I put it like this, 0.5 seconds. Oh. What if this is the reason? I'm gonna try one more thing, and if it fails, then we'll check the latency settings. Oh, okay. The time between is determining the gaps between the WAV files. So we solved that mystery.
Isn't it a good
yeah.
thing that it's leaving some silence before the sample?
That's exactly what this time between does.
No, that's the time between one sample and the next. I'm talking
Yes.
about there is a bit of silence in the beginning of every sample. Isn't that a good thing?
That's the problem. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, maybe it has to do with the minimum length, but also isn't that a good thing, as in you want some silence so that you don't start in the middle of a sample and click?
Yeah, but I want it to be directly in the beginning, because that's what I did with the other Lua, the sampling tool. And it's a real pain to cut off the beginning from all the samples.
Have you played with minimum length?
Yeah, I think that actually determines the length after the silence, after the sample is played. Let's try it. Let's go.
No, make it smaller. Make it smaller.
Okay.
Because if you make it smaller, then it doesn't go less than 400 milliseconds. But that should be different, I guess.
Yeah, let's try it. Oopsie. Keep forgetting this. Because it takes control of this automation arm.
Maybe let's briefly check the code and see if there are any pause before the sound appear.
So
that's
yeah,
a
the
good call
minimum
as
length,
well. Yeah.
The minimum length is here, yes. So
Okay.
yeah, the minimum length determines the length of the samples themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go Lua hunting. If that's a thing. Boom. Can you create a duplicate of RIA scripts so we can edit it?
Yeah. Right click and why is duplicate? Well, it's for a custom action.
Oh yes, that's right.
Mm.
Anyway, I'm gonna create a backup in the old-fashioned way. Let's go to this path. Oh, you cannot copy and paste paths. That's sad. Oopsie. Please wait. Anyway. No, that's the media. Let's go to roaming, scripts, and I forgot who made it. Sexan, I think it was this. No, reteam scripts various. Okay. It's right here. So let's create a backup. Let's sample samurai too. And let's edit this baby. So sample samurai aspires to be a simple, easy to use solution for tedious sampling tasks in the Reaper environment. Okay. Oh. So oh yeah. I have installed the Reaper toolkit. You have to install it before you run it. Anyway.
And what is the Reaper toolkit? I don't think I know this.
You have to get it from this repository. Let's look it up.
And you have done this already, right? That's
yes,
why
I've done it.
The script works.
I just don't remember how it looked like. So, that's why it looks different than the DRM GUI. This is what it was created with. Oh, it was written for reticulate. I love this thing. It's on Repack. But yeah, you download this thing and you put it in the plugins. No, it's on Repack.
All right then. I didn't know about this.
You gotta put this in the Repack repositories. Anyway, let's go back to Lua head scratching. So we have some globals. Auto clear false, track ID 1, start note, note volume, max volume, note on, note off. Interval.
MIDI start delay.
Start delay. There it is.
What happens if you change that?
Just put it 0.1.
Make it 0.
Okay. Yeah. 0 was my first thought, but I was afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Okay, saved and recompiled.
There's nothing you will break.
You can break just Reaper, nothing.
Remember to arm for recording.
Yes. So 1, 2, boom. Oh! Oh, it works!
So it was on purpose.
Oh my god. I can't believe it was that simple.
Yeah, this is a testament to how well designed the thing was, because we were able to change it and it was very straightforward.
The delay still isn't 0, but it's much more manageable. I wish I could also make it not create those fades, because I have disabled it in the settings. Let's go back to the script.
I
That's
think
the
that
last
the delay
step.
you see now may be just the block size.
Oh, okay.
Maybe just one block of samples.
Oh, okay.
Or we can try to find where MIDI start delay variable is used, and maybe there is some hard-coded numbers. I don't know.
So it's used here, and no, it's used only twice.
Well, it's on the second appearance of this variable. It's being passed as argument for this send MIDI start function, and the send MIDI start function may call its parameter under a different name. So you would need to track, all the variables that this has been assigned to find where this is actually used. But
yeah, that's not really relevant. Let's just look. Oh, oopsie. Let's just look at one final thing. If the crossfades.
Okay, sorry, one more thing.
Okay.
What if you Fotis will make send MIDI start negative?
Oh, yeah, we can try that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, because
I'm curious as well. I think that the universe will implode because you're trying to look ahead in time.
Yeah, it's gonna sample itself. Boom. Oh, I should have created a script just to automate all this. And I did recompile it, right? I did save the settings.
Do it again just in case.
Yes, saved and recompiled. Okay. Boom. It keeps losing the settings. And boom. Oops, what? Oh, yes, the universe did implode. Great job, everyone. Thank you, Cwits. This reminds me of something I read in the Melda production plugins, where it said, please don't try to do in plugins things that aren't physically possible in the real world. And I think we accomplished just that.
But it does make you wonder why they set this delay and why they let the delay appear in the item, because they could have the delay for whatever reason, maybe to catch the beginning because there is some sort of recording issue. But even if that's the case, in the end, they could have trimmed the media item to get rid of that delay, and they didn't. So they must have a reason for that. Makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna contact the developer in the forum. And yeah, I think this thing was supposed to be for hardware devices first, and then for virtual instruments. So I guess they focused on that, and maybe they added the delay so that the handshake between the hardware synth and the audio interface is minimized. I don't know. I'm gonna... Okay, one more thing. Let's go. Final thing, I promise. Let's do one block. But it's gonna be super.
What? You can do that?
Did I do it? Did I take it? Oh, I did. I don't know if it's gonna work, but...
I'm sure it's going to fry your CPU and it's going to be riddled with clicks.
Yeah, the second part is true, yes. And it's going to record that, so let's go safe. Yeah, I'm not going to do this to my CPU. And okay, that's about it. So we've solved that mystery. And okay, do you want me to end this update so you can talk about this and then play the game?
Yeah. Okay, but we have a new visitor here. Hello, person.
Oh, yeah.
Should the block size have to be power of 2?
Hello
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Hello.
To answer your question, Cwits, in Reaper you can put any number there, and I think it respects that number. Of course, it makes sense for the block size to be a power of 2 because many things that you would want to do, you want to do in blocks of powers of 2, but Reaper will just take it, any block size that you set.
Anyway, hello.
Yeah, hello, new person.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice meeting you too. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, my name's V. It's going to be easy to call me. I'm a musician, mixing engineer, master engineer, and right now in sort of middle of the way of cracking JSFX to myself. Something like that.
Can you show us something that you are working on?
Not yet. There's a bunch of what I call guinea pigs. I think next meeting I could show you something very valuable and good probably. But I've got a question which brings me here actually. I'm actually working and trying to understand how to, let me phrase that. There's an array in JSFX and in any kind of plugins. So I'm trying to figure out how to have a multiple arrays go in parallels and multiplying one by other. Is it even possible? I understand it is possible, but I can't find a way yet. For example, if one array is actually collecting few numbers, probably even 100 numbers, which are going to be, for example, a fear filter, right? Or a window in information that actually can be applied sample by sample and incoming samples into the plugin. So I can figure out how to implement that, how to multiply that array of windowing or fill filter, whatever, to incoming samples. Can't crack it yet. Could you help me or show some examples, etc.?
Yeah, so I guess there are two things to think about. The first is that in JSFX and in VSTs as well, you don't have access to previous samples. Well, in VSTs, you get access to a whole block, but let's not get into that. You don't have access to the previous samples. You have to do a bit of work. You have to collect the previous samples in an array, and that's usually called a circular buffer. So do you know how to solve this part of the equation?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so once you have the circular buffer and your coefficients for your FIR filter, then your question is how to do the multiplication, I guess convolution in that case, right?
In that case, yes, I understand the convolution process, and I know it's never been that simple. So as a middle-level guy, I'm looking for a bit simplified, yes, a bit simple solution at this stage to understand the process to myself and the code-wise, and then actually go into the convolution process. It's going to be fun, I think. We'll see. But right now, baby steps. Multiply that amount of numbers to incoming samples that's been stored in the main array.
Okay. Yeah, so let's do some screen sharing here. And I'll just sketch something. It will not be proper JS effects, but so let's say that you have your samples, and that is the circular buffer that you have been collecting samples here. And I will not show this part of the code because you said that you already know how to do this, right? And let's also say that we have our coefficients here, and this is going to be a list of numbers. Now, the specifics of how you can define this is something that you are interested in knowing, or should I also just hide this part?
I think I can skip it.
Okay.
At least for now. We'll see in future. If it's going to be not so clear to me, I would like you to explain it again.
So now what you want to do is loop over all the elements in this array and all the elements in this array and multiply them together, right?
Yep.
So let's have a result that starts at 0. And now let's do a loop. And I need to look this up. It has been a while since I wrote some JSFX because I don't remember the syntax for looping.
Then we'll come back.
All right. This is what you want to do. So let's say that the size of the this coefficients, the size of this array is 10. So you're going to loop over this. And you are going to multiply at a certain coefficient or a certain position in the array. So I'll call this the sample index. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that these indices, they will keep changing as you populate the circular buffer, and then it actually depends on how you implement this part. That will influence what shows up here. And is this the kind of thing that you are thinking about?
Yep, definitely.
All right, okay. So now, of course, the devil will be in the details, because in JSFX, there is just one array. There are not multiple arrays. There's just one array. It's one big array, and you have to cut that big array in little pieces yourself. You have to write the logic to say that this is a certain chunk of the big array, and this will be another chunk of the big array. And you will have to do the work of how to insert elements into the circular buffer, how to read elements from the circular buffer, how to overwrite the elements as new samples keep coming in. So yeah, the devil will be in these details of how we want to do this, and there are different ways of going about it. Some are simpler, some are more capable. If you want to do, if you want to access elements just by saying, I want the previous sample or the previous to previous sample, so you will have to do some computation to actually find this index. So I guess the way that I can represent this is by like plus underscore underscore underscore, where this is going to be whatever you need to get the right index. And there are many libraries that give you these data structures and that give you some sane way of dealing with, I guess, what I would call memory allocation. So you have a more disciplined way of sectioning the big array. And there are libraries that include circular buffers and all that. So if you want to do if you want to go that route, then that's a possibility. If you want to implement this from scratch, it's not terribly difficult, and you can watch some of my old streams. You can read the code for these libraries. You can look at some JSFX, even the stock JSFX, they have this sort of thing as well. Yeah. Those are my thoughts.
And they are great, let me say. Yeah, thank you for your help. And thank you for your work, by the way. There's a lot of really great videos you've made already, and I think it's your legacy. So your work will be...
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, and last year I was working on a library myself, so I was implementing it from scratch, doing live streams, including circular buffers, and there are probably hours and hours of me trying different ideas to see the trade-off in terms of features and performance and all that. And yeah, if that's something that you're interested in seeing, and at some point there will be a comeback to this because it's unfinished. Yeah, but anyway.
Great.
All right. And can you tell us a bit more about this thing that you are working on?
The thing that I'm working on, and let's call it a preparation before working, because once again, I'm trying to figure it out how to deal with that multiplication. The idea behind all of that is actually, have you heard about the Acoustica audio plugins?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, of course, anybody in this industry heard that. There, as far as I know, their system is actually based on impulse responses and all the convolution thing.
Yeah.
I believe there's a way how to not mimic the whole idea of acoustic audio, but actually create a really high def, for example, and for the beginning, equalizers for Reaper based on just JSFX code. Which is why I'm starting to explore in this area to me. I'm not ready to show some plugin yet. There's a more simpler plugin I've made, some sort of clippers, compressors, saturation thing, but let me prepare first and I'll show you something next time. Perhaps.
All right. Oh, and just to put some names to the things, this process of multiplying and then adding, that's convolution.
Yep.
And the way that I'm doing convolution here is good for relatively small kernels. That's the name of this thing. That's the technical name for this array. So it is good if you have like 10 or 20, but if it gets much larger, which would be the case if you're doing not a filter, but like a convolution reverb, it is the same principle. It's the same operation, but it gets a bit slow if you do it this way. And then there are some techniques to make it faster. If you go that route, then you want to look up how to do convolution on the frequency domain. So you would use an FFT to go from the time domain to the frequency domain, do convolution on the frequency domain, and then come back with an inverse FFT. That's what the convolution engines that do reverbs and cab simulations and all that, that's what they do.
Yeah, I understand that. There's some examples, even one of the stocks, let's call it stock, JSFX that comes with Reaper, which is a amp and cab, as you said, simulator that been written by Justin Franco, which is a god of a Reaper and a father of the Reaper. So yeah, I've read the code. It's not that complicated, but it's huge, and there's a lot of function, especially because you're loading only one impulse, and that impulse is actually, you can reload it. The idea behind plugins like acoustic audio does is actually having a library of already preloaded, or actually you have an access to those samples, to those impulses, files, whatever, the library inside of the plugin, and you have an instant access to different parts of the libraries, which is why having a huge array is it's a great idea. Yes, we've got 8 million numbers inside them, so we can put a whole lot of, and then it's not that complicated. It's just a manageable thing, the manageable task. You can split in whatever sizes you need, and then you can go back and forth. Which is why I think it's possible to implement it into JSFX and having a really, really high def, especially equalizers. Why I choose equalizers? Because yes, we've got a friend called Nyquist, and not only in frequency domain, Nyquist is actually not so good. You can implement in code matched filter, B-quad filters. I did that, that's great. But actually the problem not only, especially if you try and mimic the analog world devices, frequency, it's solving problem. The phase is actually not so solving problem, because in the real world there's no end to the phase, and actually phase shifting, especially in a high frequency area, which is causing the sound. And solving that problem, solving that task, can bring even a plugin to a more realistic and authentic sound of a hardware device. And you can really reach this by having what's called in plugins nowadays analog, or analog phase or dynamic phase, when it's actually not matching, but I think it's calculating in a more real world way. And you can capture that to sample, not sample, I'm sorry, to that impulse response, and then using in a plugin or using a bunch of them in a parallel. And this way model the analog devices even in JSFX. This is a big goal I wish I will reach one day.
Did you watch my stream last year about matched filters? And there was a whole conversation about the performance of matched filters, if they would be slower. And then I implemented matched filters and the cramping filters.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so that's a whole exploration of that kind of implementation, and yet that one was minimum phase, and with FIR you could do like 0 phase. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.
Thank you.
As you were talking, I took some notes of things I wanted to discuss on the stuff you mentioned. Let's take them one by one. First of all, there is a script by Amagalma on RiaPack, a Ria script that is called create impulse response of the FX chain of the selected track. This is just if you want to record the impulse response of a plugin or maybe a hardware device, I don't know. That's good to have. Also, you know that the closest thing to a convolution reverb stock plugin in Reaper is a Reverb. And it's a bit limiting as far as convolution plugins go. It's not very feature-wise. Actually, I think the M Convolution Easy by Melda Productions, which is free, is far more fully featured than Reverb. Now, why am I bringing this up? The problem with convolution plugins and the whole concept of convolution in general is that you're basically freezing something in time, and you're repeating that indefinitely, and you're wrapping it around your audio, right? Like, for example, you record an impulse response of a guitar cabinet, and then that impulse is being repeated ad nauseum. And so you get the sound of the cabinet on the guitar. Now, the problem with convolution is that it's not very flexible. And this is exactly why I don't really use the Acoustica plugins. I mean, these guys, and I have nothing against them. It's just that the concept of recording so many impulse responses from a hardware just to capture its sound, it's a bit overkill to me. And I don't think that Acoustica's plugins are actually high def in the sense that they are saturating the input. Like they are, if you want to get the grit and the saturation of a hardware, that's fine. And Acoustica are great at that. They're great at doing this non-linearity based on impulse responses. We don't know how they do it because the code is closed, but it's good. But still, I don't know. I'm more of a fan of very clean equalizers like Justin Johnson's Toucan's equalizers. He has created both clean and dirty ones. The dirty ones are in his Some Channel plugin. But I think it's better in the end to just create a very clean equalizer and then apply some dirt to it instead of creating an equalizer that's fundamentally based on that dirt. And finally, and yes, you knew that I was going to mention that name sooner or later, but Krasov from Air Windows.
A stream is not complete without a mention to Air Windows.
He's
and in no way endorsed by him, of course.
Yep. He has created some plugins, the character plugins and also the channel plugins, which were based on impulse responses. But instead of loading the actual WAVs into the plugins are using an EQ curve or a saturation curve that is based on those impulse responses. So I don't know how he did it, but you can do it. You can check it out because they're open source. But he actually measured the impulse responses and he applied that in code. I don't know how he does it exactly because I'm not that code savvy. But yeah, you can. He has used some impulse responses from Neve consoles, API consoles, and SSL consoles. And then if you use the Channel 9 plugin, you also have a couple of more Mackie and TIAC. Those plugins are based on the impulse response, and they're saturating the audio based on the measurement of the impulse response, not the impulse response itself. So maybe this could be something more interesting for you to check out, like a JSFX that's saturating based on the measurement of an impulse instead of having the user load like 8,000 impulse responses from a hardware device in different settings.
What do you mean by the measurement of the impulse response?
Like I can show it with the EQ curve analyzer. One sec. So let's see. You're seeing my screen, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is our friend. And let's load up one of the plugins I'm talking about, Channel 9. And let's do this. So we have 5 different settings: Neve, API, SSL, TIAC, and Mackie. And each one of them has a different response curve. So I'm guessing that Chris somehow extracted those curves out of the output of the impulses.
That is baffling to me because if you are doing, if you're talking about consoles and even Drive, it means distortion, which is nonlinear. So why would you be using impulse responses or even the EQ curve analyzer? It doesn't really apply.
Yeah, but the thing is that the distortion is in here. It's in the drive output. So you have, if you go to 100%, you have the spiral distortion, and then you have the density distortion. These are two different distortion algorithms that Chris has created. My point is that this plugin is first doing some slew clipping of some sort that is based on the impulse responses, and then it's distorting it.
Okay.
In contrast, let's take a look at the Toucan sum channel. This is also just as interesting, and maybe we would like to take a look at this as well, because, whoopsie. So yeah, let's do it again, boom. I'm gonna turn off, I'm gonna make the scaling a little bit. Oh, you can do it automatically. I forgot that I'm using Series 2, baby. So yeah, I'm gonna bypass all the stuff and just go for the regular output. So all I'm doing right now is processing with the first module, the desk input. And you have 3 different models. This is the SSL, I'm imagining, because it has red, green, and blue.
Yeah.
This is Neve or API. I don't know. These two I don't recognize, but I'm guessing they're older than SSL. Anyway, so yeah, John could enlighten us. Is John in the chat?
I haven't seen him in the chat, but let's check and say hello to people.
Okay.
Hello, Dale and Bo. And John is here in the chat.
Oh, okay. So this is what I wanted to show. These two knobs, the saturation and the desk noise. I'm gonna turn these both off so you see that there is some high pass filtering, but otherwise the signal remains pretty much the same. And now let's turn up the desk noise. And this is a kind of saturation. It's funny, actually.
Saturation?
It's a saturation that's so subtle that you can't hear it like that much. If you turn up the saturation knob, this is much more obvious, but not in the SSL. If you go to...
Isn't it just noise? It looks like just noise to me.
Yeah, but you cannot hear this noise. If I turn it off, you can't hear the noise at all.
So it's not adding noise. It is somehow adding noise to the signal.
The input signal, yes. If we look at the Psyche spectral analyzer, how do you go to the noise floor? Oh, so it is adding noise. Maybe. So yeah, I stand corrected on that one. But now the saturation is interesting. So if you have the SSL emulation, you have very little difference in saturation.
Actually, come back to the spectral analyzer and turn on and off the desk, because that may be just the denormalization prevention.
Yes, I did think of that just now. Let's turn off the EQ curve. Man, so many windows for such a small screen. Oh, now it's gone.
So it is related to the desk.
Yes,
apparently.
And I think that the Toucan, John has used that fix, the norm that we took a look at in a previous
Yeah, I saw that
used it.
when you're scrolling.
Oh,
There it is.
yeah. Yes, not the norm. And that's probably what John meant when he said in our Discord chat, I figured out a way to make all of my plugins better with one line. He didn't tell me which one line, but I think that's the one. Anyway.
It's what we called a secret sauce.
Secret sauce.
Well,
So
you're making things better and worse, right?
Mhm.
There's a
And the
reason why
noise-
denormalization prevention is there.
Mm. And the noise is different in each desk, as you can see. Now here is the interesting part. The saturation. Boom. So if we go to the, like I said, in the SSL, we see almost no difference. If I turn down the noise. So the saturation is pretty much the same. But if we go to the older, more analog stuff, we are seeing a little bit of difference, like the sample. The green line is going slightly to the bottom. And if I turn up the desk noise, it's getting even crazier. And if I go to desk 1, this is where it gets really wacky. So the saturation is like it's turning down the signal, and then the desk noise is making it freak out. So yeah, I don't know which measurements or lack of thereof John used to make this, but you will probably be able to take a look at them in the code.
Oh, I will.
So yeah, I hope that I gave you some interesting stuff to check out.
Yeah, thank you for that. Also, I have to say, by saying that acoustic audio plugins are not that great, you actually, I'm not quite sure, but one person in Italy is gonna be a bit mad.
Oh,
Because he's got a really short temper.
okay.
I'm not.
sorry.
Actually, the saturation characteristics they capture by the devices, as far as I know, they actually have their own developed system based on both impulse responses. I don't know how they capture the saturation characteristics by impulses, which is a bit odd to me. But as I've seen a really old presentation by him. His name is Giancarlo, as far as I can remember. And he said that they actually, they capturing the state of every single harmonics. And they using the plugins as actually player and playing all those harmonics simultaneously, which is a bit strange to me as a process, because Andros said before, distortion is actually in saturation it's non-linear process. How can you implement that? And they implemented that system they developed with a not original, the word I'm looking for, actually with the code version of saturations, when you actually wave shaping, creating curves, and then applying them to the signal. It's the way they doing things. I haven't said that I'm trying to mimic all the things they're doing. The main idea is actually creating, and yeah, you said you're on the side of a digital processing. You want very clean tools, and you actually already have them. You mentioned the Pro Q3, which is an amazing tool, one of the best of a kind, an amazing EQ, very flexible, lots of stuff, even a dynamic equalizer since the version 3. I can't even understand what they will bring when it comes to version 4. Like, it's going to be something unbelievably good. Maybe they will implement some setup for some knobs for set up the right behavior for dynamic bands, because right now it's seems like they've got Pro MB, which is a multi-band compressor, and the dynamic EQ, and they probably have like a little bit of clashing things because you've got two plugins with a similar functions, but one is actually limited to 6 band, and this one is actually could be 20 plus bands. So why do you need to get it and like an amazing functions to that plugin if people wouldn't use Pro MB, because the second one, the Pro Q3, could have more bands. So yeah, if that one, if we're talking about really digital and like very clear EQs, I'm talking about probably, I'm not sure yet. It's just in a concept, and I'm thinking about that still. Could be a very great, at least endeavor, to try to create an analog curves of EQ. For example, as you mentioned, a Neve consoles, the very best of the consoles, the API, the SSL, also all sorts of them. They're great and they have a behavior. They have a character, right? That character most of the time is actually referred to the saturation, but also why those consoles were so famous, because they were unique in the way they process the sound. And that was a combination of saturation and the curves, the equalizers and the output circuits causes the overall sound, right? It's what you said about the Air Windows plugin Channel 9, where he captured the output curve of the signal of the particular, for example, of the particular track or on a particular console. And yeah, you mentioned that script on a Reaper that actually capture the chain impulse response, which is a great one. I've heard many colleagues using it for saving some CPU for work. Because sometimes even if you have a rear input and using the analog tools, real equalizers, like, yeah, I said that, like the rest of the equalizers aren't real, just an analog stuff. So yeah, and it's very handy to use it. I haven't tried it yet because I'm in the box completely, and sometimes freezing some plugins even with using the oversampling on some of them is very vital. And let me say that oversampling with the AirBrain library by Oxenga is a very, very precise and very great tool.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it too. To like having anti-alias in some stuff, sometimes it's so vital and so makes that particular sound. And when you're capturing without even rendering, just freezing it at this place, and you can go back and re-render, change the parameters and render it again, but via freeze. It's just an amazing tool. And yeah, you, by doing that, I mean, the IR thing with the plugins, you've mentioned Reverb, the stock plugin, which is, yeah, it's limited, but it's cool, I think. You've mentioned Smelda's Convolve plugin, can't remember, the ease convolution ease, something like that. It's a great tool, but if you want to use as a reverb, it's a great tool because you're using one sample, but the problem is you can use in one sample at a time, right? Yeah. When you're trying to model, for example, at least 3-band equalizer, if it's trying to, like, for example, you found a really cool, like a German equalizer from 50s, and it's 2 or 3-band. Let's say it's a 2-band equalizer. 2 bands, only a shelving, the low shelf and high shelf, like old good days equalizers. We're trying to create a smile curve to our sound and make it a bit sweeter. You can't do that. You can, with the regular tools that we have at the moment, without creating any special tools. We can only you run only one sample at a time. And yeah, we can create a bunch of them to any specific settings, plus 0.5 decibels, plus decibels, plus 1.5, and so on, right? Like doing in steps. But in fact, yes, right now we have a bunch of samples and we running only a high shelf. We need to load the second convolution plugin in order to right now processing the low shelf. The idea is actually having the parallel processing of convolutioning in one piece, in one plugin. It's going to be way simpler to use, and you can, you want to say something?
Yes, two things. First, I wasn't talking about FabFilter Pro Q. I was talking about Re-EQ by Justin Johnson, which is
JSFX, Re-EQ, not
yes.
Re-EQ. Right. So great tool. Yeah.
Yeah, you could take that. I was thinking of using, like, you could create like a fork of Re-EQ that also has those saturation curves built inside it. So when you push a band, it also saturates like a dynamic distortion EQ. And the other thing I want to talk about, I posted it in the chat. So this is a Gumroad account from some very cool guys who are called Past to Future Reverbs. And they have captured a lot of hardware stuff, both reverb and hardware equalizers and compressors. Now, they used to do the same thing you mentioned earlier. Like, for example, they used an API equalizer, and they recorded an impulse of every single setting, the shelves, the
right.
So the package has like 100 impulse responses, and you can shuffle between the ones you want. But like you said, there isn't all of them inside, and you can pick the one you want, like an EQ. But in the recent months, they have used a different kind of secret sauce. They call it machine learning impulse response because, I don't know, it's a buzzword.
Machine learning comes into plugins.
Yeah,
that's the end of our days, guys. See you tomorrow.
Yes. But I don't know exactly how to do it. I haven't bought their latest stuff, but they are using a different kind of capture. Oh, yeah, I think you can check it out on Guitar ML. Are you familiar with Guitar ML? It's a new... There is a plugin called Neural Amp Modeler and another one called Proteus. The difference is that the Neural Amp Modeler can only do mono sound, if I'm not mistaken, and Proteus can do stereo. They're both free, but they have a guide on how to machine learn capture the impulse response.
I now understand of what you're talking. I have the first one, the mono one, is actually capturing things. The problem with not a problem, but let's call it the way they implement that. And it is great actually, because for example, people, especially on Facebook, lots of them, hundreds, maybe thousands of them, they've capturing very different and very interesting piece of gear. For example, some people or some person, like one guy at the studio, is actually capturing a Studer 800, a famous tape machine, 24 channels tape machine, and he gave it's a freeware, and the community, which is great, as well as Reaper's community, they all sharing very, very cool piece of gears. But the problem is the learning, I saw the learning files actually something like 5 minutes long with the different the sounds, with the different dynamics. That's a response file actually helping the machine understanding what the hell is actually going on behind this piece of gear and how to represent right. But you actually can manipulate that. You can load every single impulse, which is the same way how you can, using the convolution, you should shuffle, as you said, different samples every single time. But it'll take way less time if we're comparing with that tool.
Yeah, can you please check out the thing I just posted on the chat, the latest past to future? This is one of the machine learning stuff that they are touting. And you see they have a graph of the original hardware and then a graph of the impulse. And he says how close they came, the original.
But also about the curves.
Yes.
That's a really interesting topic because you've mentioned that before, and it is not that tricky, but people who especially arguing on the web about, that plugin is actually very close to the original, and that plugin is actually far away from representing what's actually going on inside this piece of hardware. But the thing is, piece of hardware is actually varies from the thing to thing, not only varies after manufacturing, but actually by using in a different condition, in different humidity. There's so many variables that actually causing every single piece of gear.
Yeah, even headphones.
Yeah, right. And it varies from the piece to piece, and it really it comes down on which one you're actually capturing. And
This guy knows.
And it's very important and very cool if you've got at least few of them to find in this something like average between of them. As far I can't remember. Oh no, I do remember. There is a manufacturer called Kit Plugins that actually those guys went to the famous Blackbird studio in USA, and they captured so many great things. The Neve consoles, the API consoles. They've captured a Motown 10-band EQ, and so on. By doing that, they not only using, especially on the console, they're not capturing the one channel of the console, they captured all the consoles. It's like if you ever used Waves NLS plugin, they've got 32 channels per every emulation. There's a Cell, the Neve, and the third one, can't remember the name. That's good though. And it also comes down on what you've got and what you're trying to achieve and represent. Slight differences between what you create or what you get with the, let's call it the original characteristics, it's fine. As long as you get the same, not only result, but feeling, because music, we listen it by the ears, and it's all about the feelings, not about the graphs, not about the compatibility. It's all about the feelings. As long as you're having the same feelings about what you're hearing out of the product, even doesn't matter, is you coded or some guy in Italy, you're fine. So yeah, for example, by the way, there's a bunch of plugins, even closest emulation, closest in like not so probably close, but representing the same feelings, where you can turn off as an option the saturation circuit. For example, you don't need that effect, you don't need that character, you just need a curve for a particular band. For example, the famous Pultec EQ type pieces of gear. They very variable and people love them because of that. And yet that's a tube, actually, piece of gear.
We have so many different Pultec emulations. So many people have tried it.
For example, we at the studio we had for half a day a Danish version of TubeTech, of Pultec equalizer, and we measured it through was a plugin doctor with a soft tube version of a plugin. And let me tell you, the curse of soft tube plugin, actually plugin version of that piece of gear is almost 100% close. The difference is you should turn knobs a bit heavier on the plugin to get that result comparing to the hardware. But the rest is completely the same, especially when you run in the plugin in 100 and the highest possible sample rate is actually 192 kilohertz. Even could be a bit more interesting, especially to you, Fotis. The hardware piece has a fluctuation on a signal in a 10 hertz region, some sort of noise, which is a plugin have a really steep cut. But the impulse response being almost the same. So by using a plugin, especially particularly this one from SoftTube, you actually having a really good representation and result of Pultec plugin. And there's no option to turn off the tube circuit. In some plugins, you can do that. And as another example, by analyzing the plugins, there is a really great manufacturer called Universal Audio, and they've made amazing plugins, amazing emulation, bunch of them. One of the great, at least in my opinion, one of the greatest console EQs were Neve 1081 or Neve 1084, not 1073, which is a famous one for preamp, because people love to use. They used to use it a lot in different productions during the 1670s, as far as I remember. Or it was 70s. Can't remember. Don't punch me. I could forget some things. Yeah, and 1081 particular plugin is actually don't have any saturation at all. They've got saturation only when you put it into console as a unison mode. And then they can represent the saturation. When you're using as an EQ plugin, there is no saturation whatsoever. No noise, nothing. You just having the really great representation, especially comparing to a mass piece of hardware of 1084, 1081, 1073 equalizers. The hardware actually have this character of saturation. The plugin doesn't, and it's completely fine because the curves are completely the same, and you having the response, the impulse response of the signal, because those curves are a bit different, especially, for example, those famous high-end frequencies, that high shelves, actually bell shelves. They you boosting the really high ends, but actually there is a small dip before the curve is actually going up, which is makes sounds a bit more musical because they're not sharp shelves and the rest of the bands, and capturing not just the character, as I mentioned, there's two components, the saturation and the curves. Sometimes even curves would be enough to have a flexible, even though you're limited for 4 or 5 bands. And from my perspective of experience, sometimes having a 20 bands is too much. It's too seductive to you to fix and like playing with the sound, trying to find something that actually doesn't exist inside them. And having that like a not sharp but broad pain to your sound and creating shape and the sound in the way you want, sometimes it's completely enough to you. And this approach is actually representing in terms of legacy, it's represented by the analog stuff. And having, especially in JSFX, having like in a short access something like that, I think would be great, because there is a great community of people who sharing very amazing plugins. I think I should do something as well to share it to people who created and updating so much great stuff to all of us. It's going to be just nice. And I think I will find someone, at least someone, and it's going to be okay to me, who's actually looking something to his workflow as well. Like let's say the easy emulation of that Neve console EQ, and he'll be happy, and his workflow will be way easier and way faster, and probably a bit authentic. So yeah.
Sweet.
Right. There is one thing that I want to add about impulse responses and distortion. Distortion being a nonlinear process, you shouldn't use impulse responses, and you shouldn't even use the Burton EQ analyzer. But there is an extension to impulse responses, something called a Volterra series. And that is supposed to capture nonlinearities. And I have never worked with anything like that, but it seems interesting. So perhaps you are interested in doing some research on that?
I might. Every piece of information is actually helpful to me, but there's no, like, to me at least, code-wise, there is no problem to create some curves by some math equations and then apply that to a signal to having that non-linearity. It's not that complicated to, sometimes it takes time to understand the way that actually a piece of gear causing the sound, in which way, how it's shifting the phase, is it like compressing the sound from at the stage of the positive phase or negative phase, is it symmetric, is it asymmetric? I've got some tools that help me to analyze those things. And code-wise, it's not that complicated. Sometimes it can be just one stage, sometimes it's 2 or 3 stages of like wave shaping. In fact, it's not that complicated to implement the saturation.
When you say that you have the tools to analyze this, do you mean a signal generator and a oscilloscope?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
On a different levels. Sometimes you should measure that when you're working with a hardware piece of like equalizer or even compressor, you should have like measured levels actually counted in dBu, for example, or dBVU, as you see in many plugins. And yeah, you can have it. When you're working with plugins, especially with a good emulations, and you trying to see what the heck is actually happening after the signal is actually passing through this plugin. You can see it. I don't know if the plugin have a specification about how many dBVU like level of the signal, how loud it should be to capture the right representation of those harmonics. You can run it at this level, but at many different plugins you can find on the web, freebies or actually expensive ones. It's always even enough to run it at 0 decibels, full scale, 1 kilohertz, like, or different octaves, and see how it causing the sound, because sometimes even non-linearity causing not linearly through the whole spectrum. For example, Teletronics compressor LA2A, the curve is varies on a different frequencies, and as that is really complicated to capture that piece of gear. Mm-hmm. And capturing not the character, but capturing the authentic, the authentic way it processing the sound. It's going to be very complicated. And tubes, and once again, I said there are the different conditions how the pieces of gear were used, and all of this is actually causing this sound of the particular gear. Sometimes it for the good sake, sometimes for the bad sake. Even with the mics, you can run mics through a really hard times, and sometimes it makes the particular mic sounds better.
Mm. By the way, this reminds me of a quote that Leandro said about analog modeled plugins. He once said, this analog modeling thing on plugins is very broad. Like you could put paper wings on a potato and say it's a model of an airplane. And also,
a sweet one.
If you check out on the chat, I posted something that's definitely not a potato. It's a GitHub repository about a neural compressor, and its GUI alone is going to blow your mind because it's created on many neural networks. But if you're interested, the same link also has a PDF that you can download, and I'm looking at it right now. It's a 140 pages document with lots of pictures and graphs on how Michael Holmes, the creator of this plugin, captured a hardware FET compressor into a plugin, and it's unlike anything else I've seen before. So maybe it's the future. I don't know, but
we'll see in a few years at least. And yeah, thank you for all the information. I will check it in a few next days at least. But I think there's a bit of time to starting to shut in all the things down, because it's about almost 2 hours of the stream. But before the things actually comes to an end, there's a question to you guys, an interesting one, because we've discussed about a lot, as a side note. But yeah, we talked about artificial intelligence, and I know my opinion about that. I know the opinion about in an industry, in a music, creating a music mixers industry. But what you guys particularly thinks about what is going to be, how it causes us as a people of this profession, and will we lose a job, something like that.
That's
one day we might,
question.
but yeah, what's your opinion about that? I think viewers would be interested about that as well.
What are your thoughts, Fotis?
My thoughts are not actually mine, but I saw an opinion that I agree with. Does that count? So it was from the producer Deadmau5.
Oh yeah.
I don't always agree with what he says, but I totally respect his opinion. And he, even if I disagree with him, he always gets his point across. But I really like what he said about AI in music. So he said, on the contrary, I believe that AI is actually going to make people appreciate human-made music even more. Because if you turn on the radio these days and listen to the stuff, you hear the same stuff over and over again, the same trap stuff, the same EDM stuff, and they are made by humans. So it doesn't matter if they're made by humans or AI, it's the same generic stuff. But humans will never stop craving that something different that a human can bring to the table. So I guess one part of us is the same. So it's the same thing like with the Mid-Journey and Photoshop and hand-drawn art. Like photography didn't destroy hand-drawn art. Photoshop didn't destroy hand-drawn art.
Yeah.
Why should the Mid-Journey destroy hand-drawn art?
I don't know. It could bring some new way of creating art. There's going to be something new.
That's exactly what we did. A colleague of mine who is an art teacher, he generated images with Mid-Journey, and then he created actual hand-drawn images based on those. So
that's cheating. That's definitely cheating.
When you're stuck and you have a creative, an inspirational block, it can be a great starting point, and then you can work from there.
No, it's great, but if we're talking about some technical stuff, for example, mixing some music, there is a rising wave of tools that right now is actually a handy tools, but might be one day that thing will take our job. It'll make a perfect sound in seconds. And do you believe in that?
Yeah, even if they do it, still it's gonna sound so generic. Because AI is such a buzzword, such a marketing term for plugins right now. You have the AI compressor, so it's better. You have the AI limiter, so it's better. Yeah. Is it?
something superior. You should use it. You'll be far ahead from the rest of the humanity, that mortals.
However, I liked one thing that Baby Audio said when they created Tape. Do you know their plugin?
Yeah, I know.
Tape?
Cool.
They didn't say exactly what their secret sauce is, obviously, because it's secret, but they said that in a broader sense, instead of trying to model the plugin like a tape machine, they told the AI how to think like a tape machine, like they made the robot communicate with the tape machine in some way. It's weird when I put it like that, but that's the gist of what I did. It's very alien if you think about it.
I wouldn't like to call it a weird way, but it's actually a very interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's explain to the machine how to think like a piece of gear, and we'll see what will give us.
Yeah,
that's a cool approach, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my thoughts are that we are not going to lose our jobs. First of all, because I think that the capabilities of AI are being exaggerated. And there are some impressive demos, sure. But it's always like, it's the same with self-driving cars. It seems like next year is going to be the year of self-driving cars. Next year is going to be the year of AIs taking over. And it's always next year. And that's because we are still very far from being able to generalize things like humans do. We can have an AI that completes text. We can have an AI that draws. We can have AIs that do very specific jobs. But generalized intelligence is very difficult, and it's not going to happen next year. And one could argue that perhaps mixing is very specific and could be automated. But I would argue that no, you have to have your experience in the places that you have been, the concert halls that you have been, the bands that you have listened to. And as much as we feed AI with a lot of material, much more than a human could ever listen to, AI will never be in that concert hall. They will never be. So I don't think we are going to lose our jobs. I think that there is still a long ways to go in terms of AI capabilities. And even if we got there, I think that at most it would be a handy tool to make things faster and to automate some boring tasks, perhaps.
Optimizing and helping tools, right?
Yeah. Perhaps it would be something that would decrease the number of jobs because some of the tasks can be automated. But it would not I don't believe, I wish it was the case. I think it's a very nice thought that we could live in the utopia where the machine is doing everything for us. I don't think it's feasible.
I don't even think it's possible.
And also there is a way that AI can actually help us become better at mixing, and that is stem separation. I've been studying this thing, the evolution of MVSEP and Ultimate Vocal Remover. I've been always getting up to speed on what they're doing, and I've been testing the models, and they're becoming more and more accurate. In fact, last month they released a new model called DrumSep, and that's capable of separating kicks from snares and toms and hi-hats. And we have gone this far, and I'm just saying that you can use those tools to separate instruments from a song and then remix them yourself. And I'm not talking remixing like making a dance remix or something, but making your own mix of your favorite song. And so you can put yourself in the shoes of Chris Lordald or whatever, or Andrew Sheps or whatever.
I actually know some colleagues of mine who, I can't remember the resource. There's a very, it's free resource that actually can extract the a cappella to you, or create or what's called a minus version, which is an instrumental version of your song, or any song you can upload. They have used that resource to cleaning up the concert recordings.
Oh,
what
yeah.
they did, for example, if at some point of performance the vocal was out of pitch, they just upload that particular track and not the mix, but actually the recording track, for example, the vocal recording. But there's on a concert, there's a lot of bleedings. So there's the bleedings from all over the sources, the drums, the speakers, the crowd, for example, and they've just extracting from, if it's one source of like the voice, for example, microphones, okay, if there's a room or probably some processing sounds, they extracting the a cappella sounds, only one voice sound from that recording, then slightly big tuning that, and they just pack the main sound, the a cappella, back to that stem and mixing the concert this way, which is a very clever and a bit tricky and also cheating, because someone should sing in pitch, but sometimes it happens. You can sometimes, because of a bad monitoring, you can hear it yourself on a stage, and some slight issues could happen. That technology is actually helping you to fix them, which is a great tool. Very clever, very clever move.
Not many people know this, but vocal extractors can actually be used as noise removers as well. And, there is worse, like some people are using autotune or Melodyne live. So pay to see me cheat. Pay me to see me cheat live in front of you.
Well, we'll see. Probably I will, but we'll see. But yeah, I think Joel, Dead Mouse, that you meant before, he's right. There's a great movie, not a movie, a great documentary called Sound City, was made by Dave Grohl, the frontman of Foo Fighters, about that famous Neve console and a studio that brought that console in, like, what was it, mid-60s. And they've made a whole lot of really great music, and there was a really rough and hard time for the studio in the 80s, because the digital technologies actually became a thing, and people thinking that, oh, there's the future, we're gonna actually we get rid of all that analog stuff. They actually noisy. They actually causing some sound. We could use one fader instead on a console and doing the whole bunch of stuff we need by one finger and one button. And we all know they failed from sometimes, because in the late 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, people find that sound lifeless, and they don't want that. They actually started thinking how we can bring back that character, because we were not made with this character, but we were growing up listening to music with this character, and we always finding something special inside. And without it actually sounds a bit what's the word, let's call it lifeless in some sort of way. Which is why people bring back that character, and it's not only an issue. That studio is actually, they were poor at some moment, and once again there was rough time, but they stand for the idea. We're actually doing it analog. We're actually doing it in analog way. We're standing for that idea. You guys, you are cool. Use your digital one button, one finger, want something in a console. We're going to do it in an old way, and you'll see we're still worth something. And after some times, in the late 90s, the famous wave is actually came back because of Nirvana, because of the Rage Against the Machine and all sorts of that famous and legacy groups. And they've made it in the old way. And that's what's worth it. I think this is the same thing is going to be in the future, when the AI capability is going to be a bit better than today. yeah, the calculation, the power of it is gonna be at some level of like appreciation from the humankind, when the people would say, well, that is something at least, and I will try to believe in that. There's gonna be a bunch of people, at least 4 of us, I think, who will say no. We will be like still the guys who are doing it old way, and if you wanna feel it like it in an old way, you can always bring us back, or bring back to us, and we'll bring you the best result you can ever find. None of the AIs will do that to you.
Okay, I'm gonna add one final comment to this. I've been noticing, because I used to study a lot of CDs from the 80s to the 2010s. In the late 80s, people had no idea what they were doing with digital transfer of tapes. And CDs were still in their infancy, and they weren't taking advantage of the full dynamic range of what the CD could offer. So you had some very low in volume CDs.
Yeah.
Then in the 90s, they made them a bit hotter. And they were people who were like, oh no, vinyl is better because the CD is too cold and lifeless. Then in the 2000s, we had the first instances of loudness war, and because the limiters that we had at the time sucked. And they sucked so badly that we have all the sorts of aliasing and distorting and so on. Then in the 2010s, when we started arguing about dynamic range and whatnot, we had some records that sounded really harsh, but not in a loudness war kind of way, like in a very trebly kind of way. And people were still figuring out what we were doing. And now in the 2020s, we have reached the point where everything is cool again, and I have to thank Daft Punk for that, because Random Access Memories was one of those records that said, hey guys, take it down a notch. It helps. And if you compare to Random Access Memories versus all the other records around 2013, the difference is massive. And they're like, hey, how did Daft Punk did that? Let's take a page out of their book. And so we have reached like a golden era, a new golden era, in my opinion. And AI is going to play a secondary role to all this. The key thing is that now we have a clear way of what we're doing with analog versus digital. So I'm very excited for the future. Whether it's AI generated or not, it's going to sound great.
It's going to be great. In any era is actually being great. And it's going to be great. Yeah. That's the main point. There's no better or worse. It's just the moment we're living in, which is a great one.
Yeah, it's one of the best eras to make
How
music.
How optimistic. I love it. Well, I will admit that I don't have an update this week. I have not worked on my EWI. And so I don't have an update. And it's getting late, so how about this time we skip the game and leave it for next time?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So how about we wrap up?
Yes.
All right then. So first, thanks Cwits, Fotis, and our new friend V. Thanks for joining us here on the meeting. And let's say thanks to people here on the chat. So, that's what I meant, Dale. Voltaire kernels. So thanks Bo and Dale and Ben and John for joining us here on the chat. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching the stream. You know how great it has been. Or maybe it sucked, and I am glad that you stuck with me. And soon we'll all be back together for some more coding or talking or chilling. The next time I'll be streaming.